Thank you, Connie, so much for being here on the You Make It Happen podcast. I can't wait for our listeners to hear more about you. I really enjoyed getting to know you the other day. Can you just tell the listeners a little bit about your background, story, just who you are?
For sure. So my name is Conny, and I'm originally from Austria, but I live in Australia. And I work as a hypnotherapist. And the things that I specialize in is anxiety and trauma relief. And they're both things that I experienced myself, both things that I went through myself. And both of those things, I originally went through the traditional therapy approach for many years and didn't have much success all the way up to medication. And I did try some kind of alternative stuff as well, but nothing really gave me that long term relief until I tried hypnotherapy. And that was such a life-changing experience for me that especially anxiety, that was the first thing that I worked on with hypnotherapy, that from daily panic attacks, I suddenly was anxiety free within only a couple of weeks. And that was such a life-changing experience for me that I decided to then become a hypnotherapist, change my career because originally I have a law degree in Austria. And I ended up becoming a hypnotherapist and I really decided to then specialize in anxiety and in trauma relief because they're both things that I can relate to. And I know how hopeless it feels. I know how hard it is when you have daily panic attacks to the point where you can't even leave the house anymore.
Yeah,
So yeah, I decided to specialize in that and really do specialized training with leading experts in the industry to really have a lot of knowledge about it and have a lot of experience with it so that when clients come and see me, and because I work online, I do have clients from all over the world. So people can really come and see me if they want to specifically work on that because I have a lot of knowledge about it. I have a lot of experience with it and I know what works.
I love that. I had no idea you had a law degree. Sounds similar to my background.
Oh
I
yeah,
also,
awesome.
yeah, I also have a law degree. My passion is mental health, and this is what I love to do. But I left the law a while ago. I was like, nope, this is a lot of secondhand trauma, and I'm miserable, and I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I get it. I actually never I ended up finishing my degree and then I met my partner and I moved to Australia because of him. And then I couldn't use it here at first because it is a completely different study. But at the age of 15, I already did my first Reiki trainings. I think I always had that in me that I wanted to help people or
Yeah,
wanted to work in that field. But then leaving high school, it was just like you in Austria, studying is free.
yeah.
So most people go on studying something. And it wasn't my passion. It was something I was interested in. Definitely a lot of doors for me because I traveled a lot with a law degree, like studying abroad. I know it was part of my journey for a reason.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel the same way about it. I don't actively use it, but I know it was part of my journey. And I get asked by friends and acquaintances and strangers and listeners all the time, do you regret getting a law degree since you don't use it? And my answer is no. I have so much knowledge in the law and I didn't become a victim of I don't know how to say this. I didn't become a victim of an abusive employer because I had a law degree, because I have a law degree. Whereas somebody with no education in the law probably would have just been another victim.
Mm,
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
agree. And I tell my clients that when they whatever place they come and see me, like yesterday I had a client and she was like, "Oh, I'm at this age and I feel like I haven't achieved so many things." And I'm like, "But I think that's all part of your journey. Maybe
right.
that you have done this and this before. It brought you here now."
I firmly believe that we are where we're meant to be in our life and in our path, journey, in our healing. Wherever you are, that's where you're meant to be.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too.
And I
So
think
you're trained.
it's never too late to heal or
It's
never too
never
late
too
to
late.
change anything.
Absolutely. You're never too old. It's never too late. Don't think that just because you're in your 70s or 80s or however old you are that it's too late to get started. It's never too late to get started. If you're alive, you have plenty of time to go and get started.
Mm.
It's worth it. So you said you're trained as a hypnotherapist. Can you tell listeners what that means and how it helps with healing trauma or can help?
So what I ended up specializing in was I wanted to find a way where clients can heal from trauma without regression,
Mhm.
meaning without having to go back into the event or relive the event, because that's what I went through in the traditional approach. So when I overcome anxiety and I decided to change my career, I also made it my mission to really study the neuroscience of the brain and to find out, okay, how can we heal from trauma without regression? And that's what I specialize in. So when a client comes and sees me, they can tell me as much or as little as they want about the traumatic event. I can help them the same way. So if someone comes and they have been in a traditional approach, and I know they've talked about the experience many times, I'll guide them away from that. And they're usually so excited that they're like, oh, wow, I don't have to tell you from the beginning everything again. Um,
Exactly.
but then when someone comes and says, you know what, I've never felt safe enough to open up to anyone and talk about it, of course, I'll give them the space if that's what they need.
Right.
But as I said, and it might not even happen in session one. It might
Right.
not even happen that they really open up, because sometimes people do carry a bit of a black dark secret that they never felt safe enough to open up. So I do want to create that safe space for my clients, that they can open up if they want, that they can tell me anything they want, but they're never forced. And this does not change the results of the process. So they can heal from it regardless. And I really did study the neuroscience of the brain and how that works and what's the mechanism of the brain that this is actually possible.
Yes. Oh, I geek out on neuroscience. And I think that's something that a lot of people, even people that have started their mental health journey or people that are interested in healing, don't necessarily know. You do not have to relive the trauma in order to heal from it. And hypnotherapy is one of the ways, but there are multiple modalities. You do not have to retell and therefore relive the trauma in order to heal from it. You can just,
100%.
yeah, you don't have to go through it again. You don't have, and it can, like we talked about before the show, it can be re-traumatizing. Like, it can cause more damage to talk about the trauma in some cases, like, depending on your background and how your brain works and your neurochemistry, everything involved, it can actually cause more damage for you to relive that trauma, retelling it over and over again to the point where a lot of healing modalities are not gonna work for you because you've done so much damage.
100%, 100%. Because every time you do talk about it, you light up that neural network in the brain and it's activating it. And our mind really doesn't know what is real and what is imagined. Our mind doesn't
Yes.
know past, present, or future.
Right.
So every time you think about the event or you talk about the event, your subconscious mind thinks it's happening right now.
Yeah,
And it's
right now.
strengthening it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it can actually do a lot of damage reliving it. And it can be healing to talk about it depending on the circumstances, depending on, are you making meaning out of it? Do you have a goal? Do you have somebody guiding you to help you make meaning out of it? It can be, but it not always is. And so I just, yeah,
100%.
I
And
wish
at the
more
end of the
people
day,
knew that.
yeah, I have meaning out of it. I wouldn't be working if I didn't experience trauma and anxiety myself.
Same.
Um, but the thing when we talk about, let's say when we talk about an early childhood memory, because I do work a lot with childhood trauma people. Now, when we think of an early childhood memory, a memory is also has adapted over time. So a memory that we're remembering, yeah, that happened maybe 20 or 30 years ago has changed over time because our memories are malleable. So
Yes.
we might not remember every detail. We might put in things that make sense for us.
Yes.
Talking about something like that, it might not even have happened exactly that way. It's how we think it's happened.
Exactly. Our brain is hardwired to fill in the gaps. You know, by the neuroscience
Yes.
that our brain fills in the gaps because it's just what we're wired to do. Thank you for clarifying that. That is so helpful. And I love it when people don't just hear it from me. How
Yeah,
did you get
I love that.
I love it. How did you get started on your own personal healing path since it takes a ton of work to get to where you're at today?
100%. Yeah. Look, my big motivator was at that time, my firstborn was a year old, and I had those daily panic attacks to the point where I would wake up every single night having a panic attack, to the point where I took her to a swimming lesson once and I couldn't drive her home anymore. And I think that was the lowest of the lowest I felt about myself. It was
Yes.
only like a 3-minute car ride and we were able to walk home. But just the fact that I couldn't even drive her home, I can't live like that anymore. And then we went on a holiday and her and my partner were having fun, we're laughing, and I was just miserable. I was just miserable. Sitting on the beach, I couldn't enjoy myself. And that was when I decided to try something different and I tried hypnotherapy. And because unfortunately, I don't know how it is in the US, but unfortunately, hypnotherapy is nothing that's ever been really suggested by any healthcare professional. It's not really something that's on a list that they suggest, all right, you've tried this and this. How about you try this?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're fighting a lot for that here. I'm trying to make a lot of noise for hypnotherapy just for people to have the opportunity to go that way because people don't know about it. And it's
Right.
not saying, oh, everyone has to do hypnotherapy, but it's like giving them the option of saying, hey, that's a possible solution for you. Why don't
Right.
you go and try it out? But it's never been suggested. Everything else under the sun is suggested before that. So
Same
when
here.
I then
Same in the
went to
US.
see, yeah, it's unfortunate. I think it's still a worldwide thing. But yeah, then hypnotherapy helped me so much. I got a lot better. And then the other vital point was my dad passed away out of the blue. And my dad was definitely a support person, a rock in my life. And that really was a big experience for me. And I fell down a black hole and I didn't know what to do anymore. And that's when I decided to really not only use hypnotherapy for myself, but start helping other people. Because at that time, it was a bit of a scary thing from a full-time job to now I'm becoming a hypnotherapist. Like
Right.
that decision. And then when my dad passed away out of the blue, I was like, all right, I'm not going to waste any more time. And I just jumped into it full time and did all those studies. And also at that time, I was like, okay, it's time for me to heal from trauma. Yeah, I healed from anxiety, but I did not heal from the effects of the trauma because at that time I
Right.
had no confidence. I was shy. I wanted to blend in. I could never speak up. I had no self belief. I had no self worth. And I knew all of those things needed to be healed in order for me to become a hypnotherapist and actually help other people to heal. So that experience was definitely a motivation for me to really just start that healing journey, that proper healing journey, that deeper healing journey myself. And I went to see other hypnotherapies and I tried stuff that I learned on myself. So it was a combination of everything. And on top of that, I still keep leveling up now. I still push myself out of my comfort zone. I still have a mentor. I still have people that I work with. So I'm constantly still growing and still overcoming beliefs or stuff that come up for me in my life.
Absolutely. Growth mindset. We're never really done. We're always
Mm.
healing. The work is never done. If you think you're fully healed, it's time to go back and see, look in the mirror and do the work because there's no such thing as fully healed. Like, we're always going to be a work in progress. And I think that's amazing. Just amazing. And
Mm.
I love that you mentioned so many different modalities because it's so important in healing. What kind of modalities do you use with your clients?
I do use a modern and traditional hypnotic approach. I use modalities from coaching. I use modality from NLP, from EFT, and as I said, a lot of the neuroscience. So it's definitely a blend of all of those things because I think when we think of our mind, when we think of hypnotherapy, we work with the unconscious part of the mind, which is about 90% of what we do. But then we
Right.
also have the conscious part of the mind, which is super important. So I want to incorporate, I'm not allowed to say 100% of the mind because we'll never have 100%, but as
Right.
close as possible. So I do give my clients homework from the coaching. I do coach them. I do talk with them. I want to incorporate as much as I can in my sessions.
I love that. Can you explain for the listeners that aren't familiar what NLP and EFT stand for?
So EFT is a tapping technique. Now I use faster EFT, so I don't have to have too many spots where I tap because for anxiety clients it can be too overwhelming. So I
Yes, yeah.
use a shorter version of it. Then NLP is neuro linguistic programming. So it's a lot about language patterns. It's a lot about how you speak, how you talk to yourself, the words that you use, and how you can reframe. And that's a key one. How to reframe your self talk.
Yes. Yeah. Become more self-compassionate, which just takes a lot of work. And having studied the neuroscience and the hypnotherapy, I totally geek out on neuroscience. I believe it's approximately 3,000 repetitions before we form a new neural pathway. Like when you're trying to rewire the brain or just undo old programming, you have to do that 3,000 times. And I think people either don't know or forget just how much practice this stuff takes.
100%. Because you
Yeah,
got to think about as well, when a client comes to see me, they usually already had that habit for 20 years. So they had all of those repetitions. So I tell
exactly.
them, yes, hypnosis is powerful, but my clients get homework to do. They get tools to use because I'm all about repetition and reinforcement. Because if they do that, really, in the time we're working together over and over again, that's when they will, as you were saying, form a new neural pathway. And then it's not a band aid solution, it's actually a long term solution. And that's what I want for my clients. I always tell my clients, I want this to be the last thing they need to do for that one specific problem and not a band aid solution. And then 4 weeks later, they're back to the same problem again or the same pattern again. So I'm very honest with my clients. When they work with me, I tell them they get homework to do. I tell them that they have to listen to hypnosis recordings. I tell them that it's not magic wand and you'll heal. that it does require the work for them, but they will see the results and benefits out of it if they do the work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it just takes time and repetition. I love that you give homework. I love that you have a structured curriculum for your clients because it's not just a session or 2 or even 8 and then things are better. People have to realize that this takes a lot more time, effort, repetition, and work. And regardless of hypnotherapy, talk therapy, psychotherapy, it takes work outside of therapy to do this. I love
100%.
that. I love that.
Yeah,
And
my
give our
clients
listeners sorry, go ahead.
get logged in login details to a hybrid, like to an online program. So they log on, and then it's structured. So week one, they have a couple of videos to watch. I show them some tools that they can use, and they have all of that in there. They have hypnosis recording in there, and then a week later, week two opens up. So they have all the resources in one space. I give them a lot more resources that I can do in a session because my sessions are also limited to a certain time and amount. But I give them everything that I know in there, and they can just follow along with the sessions and watch those videos, and then they have lifetime access because those same strategies or tools, they can stop any other habitual behavior in the brain. They might
Yeah,
use it, they might come to see me because they first want to overcome anxiety, and now finally they've overcome anxiety, and now they are like, oh, I want to apply for a new job, I want to go to a job interview, or hey, I want to do this presentation. They can apply the same things. Of course, they can come and see me, and we might only do 1 or 2 sessions, but a lot of it for me is all about empowerment. I want them to be empowered, that they can use those same strategies for the next thing they want to overcome and the next thing. How I was saying, the growing
yes.
out of that comfort zone. And those tools they can use, and that's a feedback that I get from most of my clients is how much they love that online part of the program.
Absolutely, and I think you hit a point that I really wanna emphasize is the growing is and getting out of your comfort zone, it builds shame resilience. The minute you get uncomfortable, you're building shame resilience because you're out of your comfort zone, because you're in new territory. That is building shame resilience. I love that. Can you
100%,
give
100%. And I do the same. I push myself out of my comfort zone because I expect that from my clients. My clients always get a little task to do after each session. So that's another
good.
thing. I get them to do an action. And I don't tell them what to do. We work it out together. Uh, I know what they written in the intake form. I know what we've worked on the session. And then I say, okay, what could you imagine doing now after the session that maybe feels a little bit uncomfortable, that you feel like, okay, now you can do it. And because one thing is to tell a client they're going to feel better or they're going to feel more confident, but I want them to experience it. Because when they experience it, you know what that creates? Excitement. It creates motivation for the next few weeks. It
Yes.
creates belief that the work we're doing is working. Because some clients, after session one, do already the first task and they're like, wow, it's only been session one and I already did something I was too scared to do. And that sets up the rest of the time. And at the end, they have 5 or 6 things that they've achieved that they thought they couldn't achieve.
I love that because it segues into one of my next questions, which was, what do you suggest for building shame resilience for yourself and your clients? And that's exactly it, unless there's more, because getting
No,
out of the
that's
comfort zone.
That's the main one, getting out of your comfort zone. And also if you do feel that shame comes up, it's all about identifying. It's about being kind to yourself as well and being compassionate to yourself.
Yes.
Um, but then also realizing, and I do tell my clients, I celebrate with them when they send me a message because it's another thing. When they do that task, I'm like, let me know you've done it. I celebrate them because a lot of the times they don't have anyone that celebrates with them. A lot of the time they have a lot of naysayers, and people
Right.
might say to them, "Oh, what are you trying hypnotherapy for? That's not gonna work." Then they come home, have done a task, and then all these people that were like, "Oh, it's not gonna work," are like, "Oh, wow." And you know what? When they then start also getting that reaffirmation from at home, from the and I'm not even blaming anyone that says, "Hey, hypnotherapy doesn't work." It's
Right.
just
Right.
what people believe. It's what people have heard. But when
Right.
they have those people on board and supporting them at home as well, and them saying, "Oh, wow, it is working for you," that just gives that extra push.
It does.
And
It
and
does.
I tell them my stories. I push as I said, I push myself out of my comfort zone, and not everything is like that. I have to work on myself as well. So I think it's a key thing to really be a human with your clients. Share your story with them. Tell them how you're feeling when you do certain things because they just want to feel understood and they want to feel like they're not alone in this.
Absolutely. And I think people don't realize that nobody is alone. Like we may not have had the exact same experiences, right? Our traumas are going to be different, our background, our history, but we've all felt the core feelings. We've all felt shame. We've all felt grief. We've all felt alone. We've all felt sad. We've all felt those human emotions that we've all experienced. We know what shame feels like. We know what not good enough feels, which is shame. We know what who do you think you are feels like, which is also shame. We know what the feelings feel like, even if we can't relate to the experience itself, right? The actual events. So it's absolutely nobody is alone. And I think people tend to forget that.
100%, 100%. I know it myself. Like in my family, no one ever experienced anxiety. So when I was going through those really bad phases, they tried to help me. They didn't know how to help me. And you know what? They also, I think, were struggling to understand what I was going through because they've never
Yeah.
felt that way. And that's
Right.
another when people start feeling alone. And I know they weren't not being there for me. They just
Right.
didn't know how to be there for me.
Because they don't know what you're feeling. I've had friends and acquaintances and even family members, they're like, "What is depression? Does that mean you're sad all the time?" Or just assume, "Oh, depression means you're sad all the time." I'm like, "Apparently you haven't experienced depression. That does not mean I'm sad all the time." Yes, you
Mm,
can be sad with depression, but depression is often just a lack of energy. And they're like, "What do you
mm,
mean? You don't wanna go paint your house?" And I'm like, "No, no, I don't wanna get up in the morning, or I don't wanna get dressed or take a shower." And it's not that I don't want to, it's just I have no energy to do that, if that makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah. So it's relating to people with the experiences are different, but the core emotions are always the same. Like we've all
yeah.
experienced the human emotions. Can you give our listeners an example of what a healing experience would look like working with you?
Yeah, so look, a client come, as I said, I work online. I do hypnosis. Let a lot of the clients start, and usually when they've experienced trauma, there's a lot of anxiety or there's overwhelm or fear or worry. So I'd usually work with that first. And the first thing I teach my clients is two strategies that are from the neuroscience of the brain, how they can stop a panic attack in an instant, how they can stop any kind of anxiety within 30 to 50 seconds. That's the first thing I teach them because I want them, when they leave the session, if they get triggered, straight away have something because that makes them feel empowered and gives them hope because that's what I want. I want them to be empowered and not I can make him feel great in a hypnosis session, but what happens 2 days later? So that's one of the key things is empower them, teach them tools that are really easy to follow. And they're the exact tools that help me overcome anxiety. So we're not talking about tools that I've read somewhere in theory they could work. They work on my clients, they've worked on me. I explain different situations, how it might be for them. Then I put them in a nice hypnotic state. I do a hypnosis on them. And then we talk about the first task. Then they get the access to the online program. And also, what I do with my clients is I'm there for them in between our sessions. So I always say a phone call I might not be able to answer because I'm with clients, but a text message because I want them to give me positive and negative feedback because that way I can help. When I know what's working for them and where they're still struggling, I know for the next session, okay, we'll keep working on that because I don't really have a complete outlay of 6 sessions. I know what I do in session one, but then it's a little bit, how is that journey? Sometimes after session one, the anxiety is completely gone and I'm so calm, I sleep better. So then we're like, okay, let's work on the next thing. And when and I always check in with my clients. So I always send a message, hey, how are you going? What's going on for you? And they love that because what most people tell me is that they've never had anyone check in with them in between the sessions.
Yeah.
That they, yeah, and I offer it to them, and then I also do check in with them, and we build a kind of a relationship with each other. So for my clients are not just a number; they are that person with that story and what they're going through. And I'm so passionate about this that I really want my clients to be successful and happy. That's what drives me to do this work. This is why I'm doing this work. This is why I love what I'm doing. So I do that definitely go above and beyond to really be there for my clients, but not in a way where they become dependent on me. If they
Yeah.
say I'm really struggling, the first thing I say to them is, have you used the tool? Have you
Right.
done this? Have you used that? What I asked you to do? Because in week one, a lot of people are like, oh no, I totally forgot about it. And I understand because it's a new thing, of
It's
course.
new. Of course you
Oh,
forgot
I
about
didn't,
it.
what am I like? Oh, I didn't think I can use it for that situation as well. So I'm not there to do it for them, but I
Right.
guide them and I teach them how they, when a challenge arises, how they can deal with it.
Yes. Absolutely. I love that. Do you feel that travel has helped in your healing process and or with your clients?
I would say yes. Travel is definitely something I think that gave me a lot of confidence, that gave me a lot of resilience, being out there and seeing other people. And look, now I travel the world a lot to different conferences where I either give presentations and then also listen to other hypnotherapists. So I think travel is definitely something that really brought me out of my comfort zone at a young age already and did build up a bit of a resilience, build up a little bit of a, okay, you're now out of your comfort zone, you're not at home. Because the comfort zone at home, especially in school, I didn't have a good time growing up in school. I was bullied and a lot of stuff happened. So
Yeah.
then being out there with completely different people that didn't know me from before, that didn't bully me, was actually really awesome because I started creating a lot of friendships through
Yes.
traveling
I love
because they
that.
didn't have a preconception about who I was like the people in school would have had, for example.
They didn't know you.
So yeah, they didn't know it. They knew me how I was there, and even the people in school didn't know me, but because I was new, I came from a different school. I was the outsider in that sense.
Mhm.
I back then felt like I never had a chance to really show them who I was, and that's all right. Again, we know it's part of the journey, but I think traveling, I feel like people are a lot more open minded that travel. Like
Yes.
I
I think
made
so too.
friends, and there are probably people that I wouldn't have hung out with in Austria because they're
Yes.
different. I
Yes.
mean, hard to explain, but I think you know what I mean.
I do because I have a friend who's Brazilian, and I would have never thought about hanging out with somebody from Brazil, and she was the only person in this hostel in Paris when I was still pretty new to traveling. I think it was back in 2008 or something. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. And I remember meeting this friend at this hostel. She was sharing the dorm room with me. And I remember thinking, this is probably not somebody I would have necessarily made friends with or even made the effort to know had it not been for the circumstances of being in a foreign country together. And that's one of the reasons I still like hostels, even though I'm in my 40s. I don't stay at hostels as much now because they're usually not as comfortable beds and I have back issues. It's not that I don't
I
want the
get that.
socialization. I'm just my back is old, it's got injuries, it's got issues. I want a more comfortable bed. I don't wanna sleep on a cot or sleep on something that resembles a board with a sheet on it, which has happened.
Yeah, I get it.
But
I get it.
anyway,
I feel like
yes,
when you travel, I feel like those people become almost like your family.
yes, yeah, you can get so close. You can't get to know someone really well in a short amount of time, right? But you can get close with them in the circumstances, and you can bond and create an
Mm,
everlasting friendship or relationships of some sort, whatever. And travel, I think it really does open people's perspective, open people's minds. People are more
mm.
open-minded the more they have traveled.
Accepting as well, accepting of different
Yes,
kind of
accepting.
people.
Yes, because people don't live the way you do. There's hundreds of cultures that do not live the way you do. And it's interesting to see that and experience that and be humbled by that because then you're the outsider. Suddenly, you're not
Mm,
the one who's at home in your comfortable territory and you're the one from the foreign country, especially US citizens. I think US citizens tend to get an air of entitlement as US citizens. Oh, we're US and we're the biggest and best. It's just not true. But if you haven't experienced anything outside of your bubble, outside of your world in the US, you may have been brought up to think that or been culturally influenced to think that. But step foot into a couple European countries, into African countries, into Asian countries, and you'll get some perspective. Australia is a
mm,
whole different world than the US. Get
mm.
a lot of perspective. Anyway, I can go off on a tangent about travel forever. So I'll get back on track, I swear. What do you wish more people knew about healing their own trauma? And then we'll get to the rapid fire questions.
I guess that they don't have to relive it to overcome it. And the
Yes.
other thing as
Yes.
well is that because a lot of people, when they come and see me, feel like they've tried everything, but nothing has helped them. And again, I felt like that too. But I think one of the key things that I would say to people is yes, even if you feel like you've tried everything, you haven't tried everything. Don't give up. Don't
Yeah.
give up. It could be a different process. It could be a different person. It could just be one sentence that someone says to you that just changes your perspective. So I just encourage people not to give up, even if it feels like they've tried everything, or even if they feel really hopeless, because I just know that they can heal. Everybody can heal with the right approach for them. And sometimes you got to try a few things and
Yes.
maybe be open minded and go down a different route that you didn't think about.
Sometimes trial and error. There needs to be some trial and error. You're not just going to hit the gold mine, the right therapist, the right hypnotherapist, the right modality the first time out of the gate. If you do, great. Then you're the exception, not the
Mm,
rule. Let's be clear about that.
100%. I
And just
myself, I studied Reiki, kinesiology, crystal healing.
yes.
I love all of those things, and I see other people for that. But for me, yeah, hypnotherapy was the one thing that's helped me so much, and this is why I work in it. But I still
Right.
think kinesiology and Reiki and crystal healing and all of these other things are amazing as well.
I think so too. Yeah. The more healing modalities I try and the more spiritual experiences like Reiki and crystal healing and all of that that I try, the more I find that, wow, this really is shifting my energy. And wow, I really am feeling less crappy, or I just feel a little bit better. And I just noticed an increment or psychedelics. And there's just so many modalities. There's so many,
Mm,
and it doesn't all accumulate at talk therapy. That's not all there is, which is
mm,
one of the things I love for my listeners to really get from my episodes. And I know I've said it in multiple episodes, but sometimes people just tune in for the latest or whatever. So if you're just tuning in, then if that's the only thing you take away, that there are so many modalities for healing. If you tried one and it didn't work, keep going. There are
yes.
so
Yeah.
many.
100%.
Okay.
You know what? There's also little things you can do yourself. People talk about gratitude, but doing daily gratitude, if you do it daily, it does add up. You might not feel a difference on day 2 or day 3, and that's what people do. They
Right.
do it for 2 or 3 days and it's not working. But there's little things
Exactly.
like that, gratitude. Or another thing that I teach my clients is first thing in the morning when you wake up, you're still in that hypnotic state.
Right.
Set an intention for the day. Spend 3 minutes. Everybody has 3 minutes in the morning. Spend 3 minutes in the morning thinking positive thoughts. Because most people wake up, look at their phone, look at the news, look at something negative, read messages, and
Yep.
straight away you're in that hypnotic state and you're
Yep.
already programming your mind in a negative way.
Yep.
So you can do that. You can just really wake up and be like, okay, it's going to be a great day. I'm going to feel good. This is what I want to achieve. Visualize it, whatever. And if you do that every day, I can promise you will see a difference. The same with gratitude.
Yes. I think people are just so impatient and
Mm.
they expect instant results, or they expect results in a short amount of time. Well, I've done this 3 times. Do it 3,000 times and then come back to me. Or for muscle memory, for like physically, like people that are used to picking up their phones first thing in the morning, muscle memory is going to take 300 times. And on average, that's at least a year. If it's something you do every day, then it'll be like slightly less than a year, right? But it takes a year of practice, 300 times doing something before muscle memory remembers, "Oh, we don't wanna do that anymore. Instead of picking up my phone, I'm gonna think about my intention for the day or something I'm grateful for before my feet hit the floor out of bed," right? 300
Good.
times, because that's a physical motion that your muscle is trying to remember. But as far as the new neural pathway, if you're gonna come up with gratitude in the morning, let's say, and spend the 3 minutes, and they're like, "Oh, this didn't work after the first 3 times." It's not gonna work after the first 63 times, sweetheart. It's gonna work after hundreds, if not thousands of repetitions. It's gonna
Mm.
take time, and I wish people would be more patient with themselves and kinder to themselves. Give yourself some compassion during this process, because that's going to take you so much time, because that takes 3,000 repetitions. Let's say you get there in 2,000 repetitions. That's amazing. Congratulate yourself and celebrate with your hypnotherapist, or celebrate with your therapist, celebrate with whomever. Just take the time to be more compassionate and patient, because this
Mm.
stuff takes time. Okay, you and I could talk forever. I will end the show with a quick quiz question round, which we may not get through in the next 3 minutes, but I will just send you a new link in Messenger the minute this cuts us off. So the minute
Okay.
it cuts us off, I'll send you a new link and then we'll start over again. But
Okay,
we
cool.
can at least get started for now.
Uh-huh.
What piece of art, movie, show, or any creative work was incredibly influential for you and why?
I can think of a movie straight away, and you're gonna laugh about it, but it's the movie Inside Out
Oh, I love that
because it
movie.
relates so much to hypnotherapy and to the
Yes.
different parts within us. And I actually use that with my clients in one of the sessions. I show them
Oh,
like a 2-minute clip of it.
yes.
I want them to understand, hey, what are we doing when we're talking about the inner child part, when we're talking about that part? Because it explains it in a fun way. And a therapy session doesn't have to be serious. I want to put a bit of fun into it because that makes the work a bit easier for the client. Yeah, and I love that movie. And I just watched the second part as well. It's
It's
just
such a good
yeah,
movie, and the second part was so good, the sequel was so good, and it's such a good
yeah.
illustration, like you said. So we have our parts, right? But we also have our emotions, and the emotions are an inside out. They're running the show. Your emotions are running the show. I love that they show that. I love that it's
And the
such a
core
relatable
memories.
kids movie.
I love the core
Yeah,
memories, how they
and the
explain
core
it.
memories, and, like, how that shapes who you are as a human being. It's just I thought Inside Out was so well done. I think it should
Yeah,
have won more awards. It's such a good movie.
yeah, I agree.
I love it. What do you do to decompress?
I like to be outside. I'm an outdoorsy person, so roller skating, exercising, going out with my 2 kids to the park, sunshine outside, that's me. That's me. Really getting physical, really being in nature a little bit, and I like keeping fit because I think our body is the same. I train my mind, but I also try to train my body and stay healthy in that area. So I
I
enjoy
love it.
that. And I sometimes do it in between my clients that I go for a quick roller skate.
Perfect. Absolutely. Client work can be draining because you have to have the emotional space and energy for that. I know for me that client work can be draining. I need to decompress. I need to go play pickleball, move my body, get some
Mm,
exercise, or do some yoga or something when you do client work because it is really draining. If you get the
mm.
opportunity between clients, absolutely go and get a little roller skate in. Mm. Okay, what is the last self improvement or trauma book or show you read or saw and highly recommend?
I've actually just published my own book, which is called Shine Through Trauma. And it's all about
Yes.
healing trauma without regression. I only published it on around beginning of November. So really, my last year, that's all I've written, that's all I've read. And it's pretty much about a client that I helped that has had severe trauma and was struggling for many years, and how I've helped her overcome trauma. The book is really for anyone that has experienced trauma and that wants to overcome it. But I've also written it for a therapist that wants to help people heal from trauma without regression, because there's strategies in there for the client, but also for the therapist.
Absolutely, and I guess that probably answers the second question of what book are you currently recommending to anybody who will listen, because
For
your book
sure,
is
yeah, I do.
fantastic. I'm really excited to read it. I'm so excited to read it. It's on my list right now.
Awesome.
I think I also congratulations. It's amazing that you wrote and published a book. That's a big deal. I don't think people realize how much work goes into that, how much
Oh,
editing, how much effort, how much time, and emotional energy that we spend on things like that. Oh,
and you know what? Also breaking through then my beliefs about, am I good enough to write a book? Who is gonna read that book? And on top of that, I've written that book in English, so that's not my first language, English. Who am I to write a book in English? A lot of those things came up in between that journey of writing the book, where it comes back to what I was saying. That's when I then use my own strategies and be like, stop, don't say that to yourself. You're good enough to write a book. You've got
yeah.
so much value to give.
Yes, and you do, and your work is just incredible. I wouldn't have you on the podcast if I didn't think that you were an amazing, influential person who has done so much work and helped others in a profound way.
Oh,
I don't
thank
just
you.
have anybody on the podcast. So I think it's great that you're here and it's great that you've done this work. And it's incredible that you've found a modality to share it with the world and be able to get your message across in more than one way. Because not everybody can afford hypnotherapy, but maybe they can just
Mm.
afford a copy of the book. Or maybe they can
Yes.
get it from the library after it's brand new. You're not going to find it at the library yet. But after a while, it may become available at the local library. That's usually free in the US. I love it. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
What's at the top of your travel bucket list or wish list?
A place I've traveled a lot, but a place that I wanna go to one day is the Maldives.
Oh, yes. I hear
I
they're
just think
beautiful.
of that white beach, and I love the
Mhm.
ocean, and I love snorkeling, and I love diving, so I think that's a place it looks like paradise to me.
It does. I've seen pictures. It looks amazing. I've never been. I've been to Bora, French Polynesia, Hawaii, but I've never been to the Maldives.
Oh, wow, that sounds amazing. I've been to Fiji. Fiji was a highlight too, that was beautiful.
Fiji's gorgeous. Yes, I went to Fiji because I was like, "Oh, if you're a Red Dwarf fan," and I know I'm totally showing my nerd side here, and I don't care, but if you're a Red Dwarf fan, you've got to go check out Fiji because it's just like, central to the show. It's super nerdy British comedy, but I absolutely adore it. I grew up watching it. All right, I digress. ADHD squirrel. What is the best travel story you've ever heard, or your best travel story?
I would say one of my highlights was probably 2 years ago when I went to Las Vegas because I was
Okay.
invited to go to give a talk at the hypnosis conference, and then I fell pregnant. And I couldn't go because it was too close to the end of the pregnancy, and it wasn't safe to travel anymore, and then I said, "Alright, we'll invite you next year again." So then I took my mom, my 8-year-old and my 8-month-old daughter,
Oh,
and my husband was meant to come, but he got sick, so I was like to my mom, "Please come with me." So we all jumped on a plane, traveled to Las Vegas, and we made it like a little girls trip out of it, and it was so much fun, and it was such a fun experience. Of course, the traveling was exhausting, but my daughter was too little, the 8 months old, to leave her at home. But what was
yeah.
funny, one of the highlights was we all stayed at a big hotel, like people from the conference and other people. And one day I was in the elevator and I had the presenter's patch on, and this woman comes up to me and she's like, "Oh, you're a presenter. You at the conference?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm presenting." And she's like, "Oh, yesterday I saw you in the elevator with two little kids." And I told her the story where I come from. And
Right.
what really was amazing is that oh my God, that really inspired me because I always had this feeling that I had to make a decision between having a child and being a hypnotherapist and having my career, and
Yeah.
seeing you traveling all the way from Australia to here and doing all of that really inspired me that both is possible. And, that was not the intention of the trip, but that happened. Yeah,
Yeah,
was
that's
beautiful.
incredible.
And yeah, it was just a really fun trip we made out of it, like all of us together and traveling with my mom and my youngest and my middle daughter. So that was good. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's a lot of work being a mom, and a mom is a full-time job, let alone doing anything else. But it is possible, and I think that's amazing, and I love that you inspired her. I love that.
Yeah, me too.
What is the most useful travel purchase, item, or items you've ever made?
There's probably two things that I travel with. One is my Burton sleeper hoodie, which has
Okay.
all these functions for the plane where you can put a mask over your head and your hands in there and a cable pocket. And I have that since a long time. They don't sell it anymore, but it's almost like you're wearing a sleeping bag around you
I
and
love
it's
it.
warm and nice. And I wouldn't go anywhere without my e-reader
Yeah. Yep, gotta have entertainment. Gotta have entertainment.
because that just really, wherever you sit, wherever you are, you can always read.
Yes, I agree. Alright, the foodie in me has to know what is for dinner tonight.
Spaghetti bolognese we're making tonight.
Oh,
Home
that
and
sounds
garlic bread
delicious.
and salad, yeah. I
That sounds
pre-cooked
delicious.
yesterday, so I'm like, because I got a busy client day today and yeah. So I made a big nice batch yesterday and we're gonna have that for dinner.
That sounds amazing. I might have to make that for myself now because it sounds so good, and I just found some bolognese sauce that I forgot that I had. What would you say is your theme song or a couple of songs that describe who you are?
I would definitely say Roar by Katy Perry. I
One.
use that song with some of my clients in the session and it's always fun. We dance together. Maybe also Unstoppable by Sia is definitely a song that describes a lot. And another song that I use as well is from Dom Odell Heal. That's a beautiful song where that's very emotional when I do that with my clients. And it's really about that you can heal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you can. All right, last but certainly not least, what advice would you give for somebody struggling with not being able to find a therapist?
I think it goes back to what you were saying is just ask around, try out, maybe go online. I found my therapist online by just watching some YouTube videos because even when I work with a client, I have a conversation with them before they start working with me because I want them to get the feel for who I am and I get the feel for who they are. And sometimes it's really just watching some YouTube clips. I mean, these days, most therapists are on YouTube or there's a couple of videos of Facebook on them. Or you read a couple of reviews or you read a few people talking about them. I think it's really just getting yourself out there and getting the feel for what could align with you. But again, what we were saying earlier, maybe you have to try out a couple, or maybe one therapist helps you to a certain point, and then it's time to move on to the next person. That's also possible
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes, thank you. This is not one size fits all. This is 1,000 different sizes fit 8 billion people. There's just so many options, or probably millions of healing modalities. I just can only think of so many.
100%, yeah.
But I appreciate you taking the time today and being here on the You Make It Happen podcast. I am so excited that our listeners got to hear all about your background, your story, and hypnotherapy, and just there are so many ways. There's so many ways to work on yourself that don't involve a parochial one. This is the only thing I can do, and if that doesn't work, then I'm screwed. Right?
Mm,
I really appreciate you being here and echoing some things that I've been preaching on the podcast. It just I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. That was great.